So there's this book called The Elements of Style. You know, the one your English professors treat like the Holy Bible of writing. It's got glowing reviews on Goodreads, and you'll see people recommending it online from time to time. But here's the thing, linguists widely agree that it's actually one of the worst books on English writing. The Elements of Style doesn't deserve the pedestal it's been placed on by countless American college graduates. While it's often hailed as a grammar Bible, its advice swings from empty platitudes to outright contradictions. And far from improving students' grasp of English grammar, it may have done more harm than good. Let's talk about the authors. William Strunk, an English professor at Cornell, wrote the first edition about a century ago. E.B. White, who later became famous for Charlotte's Web, was one of his students in 1919. After Strunk's death, White expanded and revised The Elements of Style, and in 1959, the book was published commercially, quickly becoming a bestseller. This might seem like a great success story, but for the field of English grammar, it was a disaster. Strunk and White were not experts in grammar. In fact, they were far from it. Strunk's grasp of syntax was shaky at best, and White's was even worse. Despite the significant advances in linguistic theory after 1957, The Elements of Style became the go-to grammar guide for college students and the general public, keeping the study of grammar stuck in the past for much of the 20th century. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not here to bash all the style advice in The Elements of Style. Some of it, like be clear, is harmless, albeit obvious. Others, like omit needless words, are practically useless. After all, if you already know which words are needless, you don't need to be told to cut them. Even the more questionable advice, like do not inject opinion, doesn't do much harm. Let's be real, students will inject their opinions no matter what. But when it comes to grammar, the book crosses the line. Take the advice on the passive voice, for example. Strunk and White argue that the active clause, I will always remember my first trip to Boston, sounds better than the passive. My first trip to Boston will always be remembered by me. And sure, that's true, because the passive in this case is awkward and unnatural. But this example is a setup. They're using a poorly constructed sentence to unfairly discredit the passive voice altogether. After this shaky start, Strunk and White do acknowledge that the passive voice has its place. But here's the problem. Too many writing tutors and even grammar checkers take their advice too far, red circling every passive construction as if it were a cardinal sin. This overzealous interpretation is one of the many ways The Elements of Style has unintentionally damaged our understanding of English grammar. What's even more concerning is that Strunk and White didn't fully understand the grammar they were trying to teach. In their discussion of passive and active voice, they get it wrong 3 times out of 4. For instance, they mistakenly identify there were a great number of dead leaves lying on the ground as a passive construction. Spoiler alert, it's not. These mistakes have spread through study guides and freshman composition classes all over the English-speaking world. It's no surprise that many college graduates struggle to tell active from passive clauses. They've been misled by The Elements of Style. And the mistakes don't stop there. The book's take on the split infinitive, for example, is flat out wrong. Strunk and White claim that splitting an infinitive, like in to completely understand, puts undue stress on the adverb. But the truth is, placing the adverb before the verb actually downplays its emphasis. The author's misunderstanding of even basic grammar concepts like this is alarming. Even more frustrating is their stubbornness in sticking to arbitrary rules without any evidence to back them up. Take their rule on using none with a singular verb. A quick look at classic texts, from Oscar Wilde to Bram Stoker, shows that none often pairs with plural verbs. But Strunk and White ignored this, insisting on a singular verb instead. So here we are, 65 years later, still grappling with the legacy of this over-opinionated, under-informed little book. It's left generations of students anxious about their grammar, unsure whether they're writing correctly, and worried about breaking rules they don't fully understand. So no, don't read The Elements of Style. English grammar is a rich and complex field. deserving of serious study, not reduction to a list of simplistic, often misguided rules. If we want to truly understand and appreciate the beauty of English syntax, we need to move beyond the narrow confines of Strunk and White. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the